Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another Essential Album video. This is the kind of breakdown of all of the albums we featured on the 52 album series. We're going to just do a quick slideshow here discussing the albums very briefly, and then we're going to move into the actual statistics of this kind of experiment, whatever you want to call it. We're going to look at the different genres that were used, as well as the kind of various decades that were covered. So let's go ahead and get the images up here for the albums. So the first album we covered in this series was "There Is Nothing Left to Lose" by the Foo Fighters. This is their third studio album. It's my overall favorite album from them. I love my favorite song from them is probably "Aurora." So this kind of started off our series back last January, and it's just an amazing album. Easily my favorite album from the Foo Fighters. I think in Dave Grohl's autobiography, he also mentions that this is what he considers to be their best album as well. So I think I'm in good company there. The next album after that was Metric with Fantasies. This is the first album that I remember picking up from Metric. Easily my favorite. It's got a lot of really great tracks on it, like Give Me Sympathy and Sick Muse. So coming in at the second album that we covered this on this series was Fantasies by Metric. Album after that, we covered The Stranger by Billy Joel. I think pure, just you could just say this is a Billy Joel greatest hits, because basically every song on this album is a classic. Vienna probably being my overall favorite Billy Joel song, and that's featured on this album. So that was The Stranger by Billy Joel. After that, we featured Appetite for Destruction by Guns N' Roses, their debut album, and just a very solid album. Amazing songs on here. Welcome to the Jungle, Sweet Child of Mine, My Michelle, and so on. So that was Appetite for Destruction by Guns N' Roses. After that, we had Version 2.0 by Garbage. Easily my favorite album from them. It was a huge step up from their first album. Their first album was great, but this album basically just kind of was even better than that, and I still think to this day my favorite album from them. So that's Version 2.0 by Garbage. After that, we moved into Spice World by the Spice Girls. I think Spice World has an overall better selection of songs than their debut album. I think Too Much and Stop are on this album, and Too Much is an amazing song. Stop is just a classic. My favorite overall Spice Girls song, though, is probably Say You'll Be There. That was off their previous album. I just think Spice World has just an overall better selection of songs. After that, we had Smash by The Offspring. I remember my friend in high school was telling me about this album, especially the track Bad Habit. I picked it up based on his recommendation, and it's an amazing album. Very good, kind of like punk rock kind of album. We have songs on there like Self Esteem and Come Out and Play. You got to keep them separated. It's an amazing album. So that is Smash by The Offspring. After that, we moved into Dr. Dre's The Chronic from 1992. One of the greatest hip hop albums of all time. Has some just amazing tracks on it. I think I maybe mentioned this in the video when I was first playing the original Grand Theft Auto game. This was kind of my soundtrack to that, because I basically had a thing where you could load the CD in, and then it would load the game. You could then put an audio album into the CD-ROM, and I did that with The Chronic by Dr. Dre. Just an amazing hip hop slash rap album. After that, we moved into Jagged Little Pill by Alanis Morissette. Probably one of the kind of trifecta of albums that I consider to be kind of the albums that really got me into music in 1995. Those other two albums being Garbage's or Garbage, self-titled debut, as well as the Foo Fighters debut album, 1995 is kind of when I feel I really started getting into music, or at least taking it more seriously. And then Alanis Morissette's Jagged Little Pill was one of the albums that kind of spearheaded that. I think it's just an amazing album. It's still probably my favorite album from her to this day. She's released several very good albums, but I think Jagged Little Pill. It's not really a debut album because she had two other like albums that were Canadian, but it's or Canadian at least only in Canada. But this is it might as well be a debut just because it's so stylistically different than the other two albums that were like more like pop dance albums. This is kind of like a more like an adult rock album, but an amazing album nonetheless. One of the best albums probably of all time, I think. After that, we moved into Whipped Cream and Other Delights by Herb Alpert and Tijuana Brass. A very good jazz album. There's a little bit of jazz on this that I featured on in this series, and this is just one of my favorite jazz albums. I have it on vinyl. It's always a blast to listen to. After that, we moved into Bruce Springsteen's Born to Run. Just a classic Bruce Springsteen album. I think very highly. A lot of fans consider this to be one of the best, and it's definitely an amazing album. He's got a lot of very good albums, but I think this one definitely has a very amazing like song selection, and like that and like Born in the USA probably be my two favorites. But I think Born to Run kind of just edges it out just a little bit. After that, we move into another jazz album, which was "Take to the Sky" by Cat Edmondson. I remember hearing this on Spotify, or not Spotify, it was Pandora back in like 2010, and we had it on like a weird jazz kind of station. And her cover of The Cure's "Just Like Heaven" was on that kind of that station, and that cover is off of this album. And just a lot of I don't know if any of the songs on the album are original or if they're all covers, but definitely like her take on a lot of just kind of like jazz kind of classics, not even jazz classics. I guess like The Cure. Cure is definitely not jazz, but like she has a cover of the Cardigans' "Love Full" on here, and then some other jazz covers as well. So "Take to the Sky" by Cat Edmondson, another jazz album on this list. After that, we move into a little bit of country with Robert Earl Keen, probably my favorite country musician. I've seen him live like 3 times now, 4 times. I think he's done actually touring. I think he's retired from touring now, but I've seen him several times playing. And "Bigger Piece of Sky," I think overall has some of his just best songs on there. It's more modern. I think this came out in the 90s. But whenever I would listen to him, it just reminded me of country music from like the 70s or 80s, where it actually has a lot of the songs have narratives to them. Like I think like some like songs that actually tell a story. And "Bigger Piece of Sky," probably my favorite album from him. "Gringo Honeymoon" is also amazing, so if you can check either of those out, I would highly recommend them. After that, we move into "Aquarium" by Aqua. I think I mentioned this in the video, but I remember listening to them over the summer of 1997 because my friend's brother was a DJ and actually imported the album from Europe before it was actually released here. So I kind of got like a little sneak preview of that. I actually saw them live a few weeks ago, and it was just a blast. The concert was amazing. A lot of songs off this album were played, including like "Barbie Girl," "Dr. Jones," um, "Happy Boys and Happy Girls." An amazing Euro pop dance album. Probably their best album overall. They've released I think 3 albums total, but "Aquarium" is just a classic. I actually recently just picked it up on vinyl as well. So that was "Aquarium" by Aqua. After that, we moved into "So" by Peter Gabriel. Just an 80s kind of pop classic. You got songs on here such as "Sledgehammer" and "Big Time." Probably I haven't listened to all of his discography, but this is probably my favorite album from Peter Gabriel. After that, we moved into songs for the Death by Queens of the Stone Age. This is when Dave Grohl was with the band, and he was going through some kind of rough times with the Foo Fighters at the time. And his drumming, Dave Grohl's drumming on this album is just insane. I think some of these songs from this album show up in as like Rock Band DLC, and I remember trying to play those songs on drums, and they're just brutally difficult. Um, I think Queens. This is probably my favorite album from Queens of the Stone Age. It's just a classic. After that, we moved into Nora Jones and Come Away with Me, kind of like a blues kind of jazz album. Some very good tracks on here. Um, Definitely enjoy Nora Jones on occasion, and I think this is probably her best album, or at the very least my favorite from her. After that, we moved into For Life by Phases. This is kind of like a modernized kind of pop album. Came out in I think 2015. Some excellent songs on there, such as Cooler and I'm in Love with My Life. I would highly recommend this album. I'm not really familiar with their music outside of Phases because I think the singer in this was in another band, and I think this was kind of like a side project. But For Life by Phases, highly recommended. I would recommend checking it out. After that, we moved into this was an album I had not heard up to this point, and the reason I remember actually ended up listening to it, I was watching I think it was Amoeba Music does a thing where it's called What's in My Bag, and they have like usually a musician or celebrity guest in the store, and they have a few items that they've put in a bag, and they just discuss what those items are, like albums or movies or whatever it might be. And Seal was on one of those episodes, and he was discussing Intervisions by Stevie Wonder and saying how much of an amazing album it was. So like basically off Seal's recommendation, I ended up listening to it, and it's just a very solid album. It's got like a lot of like funk to it. Like Higher Ground is on this album, I think. A lot of other really good songs off this album. So that was Inner Visions by Stevie Wonder. After that, we moved into Graceland by Paul Simon. Just the title track on this album alone is amazing. It's just a classic. I remember like we went through like a Paul Simon phase at this restaurant where I used to work, and we were all just like jamming to Paul Simon for like several weeks, and this album was on heavy rotation. So that it was Graceland by Paul Simon. It's an amazing album. After that, we moved into the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill. Definitely one of the. I don't know if you would consider this to be a debut because she was in the Fugees, but this is kind of like her solo debut, so to speak. And it's the only album she's ever done, but it's basically a perfect album. But like maybe like she's just thinking like, I released like what I consider to be a perfect album. What else do I have to do besides that? So, Miseducation of Lauryn Hill, an amazing kind of hip hop like soul album. There's R&B elements to it. It does it, I think, a disservice to put it into just one genre, but for the sake of this series, we kind of we put it under rap and hip hop. But there's so many other genres at play on this album. It's just a classic. So that is the Miseducation of Lauryn Hill by Lauryn Hill. After that, we move into another classic, Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. Probably my favorite album from them. You have just classics such as Time. I think Time is my favorite song from Pink Floyd overall. You move into like The Great Gig in the Sky. You have Money on there, as well as I'm trying to think of like Us and Them. Just amazing album. Definitely kind of like the hype around this album. It's like it's true. It's a great album. So that is Dark Side of the Moon by Pink Floyd. After that, we move into Red, Taylor's version by Taylor Swift. So I think this overall, Red is probably my favorite Taylor Swift album. And this is a very good version of, like, her version of that album, the re-recorded version. However, I probably should have waited to do Taylor Swift until the end of the year because I actually think 1989 Taylor's version it's the album that all the songs in 1989's Taylor's version are just as good, if not better, than the original 2014 recording. But Red Taylor's version also is very good, even though there are some versions on the 2012 Red that I like a little bit more. But Red Taylor's version was featured here. Again, I think I like 1989 Taylor's version slightly more, but I like Red as an album overall a little bit more than 1989. After that, we move into Master of Puppets by Metallica. just a classic heavy metal album. You have Master of Puppets on there. One of probably their more iconic songs. I just absolutely love this album, and it's just always a blast to just like play this album. So that was Master of Puppets by Metallica. After that, we moved back to some country. This is West Coast Town by Chris Shiflett of the Foo Fighters. It kind of harkens back again to a little bit like I mentioned earlier about Robert Earl Keen, how it's songs that actually tell a story. And it feels definitely like more like, I guess my favorite genre of country is probably like outlaw country. And this has those vibes to it. So that was West Coast Town by Chris Shiflett. After that, we move into a kind of another Euro dance album, Sweet Dreams by La Bouche. So you have on this album, you have Sweet Dreams, you have Be My Lover, just a mid 90s kind of dance classic. I think like this Be My Lover shows up in A Night at the Roxbury. I guess technically it also shows up in Romeo and Michelle's high school reunion first, because it came out a year before that. But this is just an amazing Euro dance album. I think they've only released, like, I don't know how many albums they've released overall, because the lead singer passed away in like 2001 in a plane crash. But Sweet Dreams is from like the mid 90s, and it's amazing. So that is Sweet Dreams by La Bouche. After that, we move into Nevermind by Nirvana. 1991. 1991 had a lot of really good albums, and I know a lot of amazing albums were released within like a few weeks of each other. But Nevermind, I think, at least in my opinion, is my favorite Nirvana album. You, of course, have, Smells Like Teen Spirit on there. And I think actually a song that I like a little bit more than Smells Like Teen Spirit is In Bloom. Just amazing lyrics and vocals by Kurt Cobain. You have amazing drumming by Dave Grohl. Chris Novoselic doing very amazing bass work. So yeah, Nevermind by Nirvana made it into this series. Absolutely love this album. I own it on vinyl as well. After that, we move into excuse me, kind of like a modernized like jazz album. Modernized being came out in 2002, I believe. But this is Cooking with Lasers by the Baldwin Brothers. If you played the PS2 game Amplitude, you might be familiar with a song off this album called Urban Tumbleweed. That's off this album. Probably my favorite song on the album, though, is actually called Lava Lamp, and it's just a kind of like modern jazz album. But I think they've released a few albums, or a couple at least. Cooking with Lasers is my favorite, and there's another one called Return of the Golden Roads, which is also very good. But Cooking with Lasers is probably my favorite album from them. So that was Cooking with Lasers by the Baldwin Brothers. After that, we moved into Animal by Kesha. Very solid, like I think 2009, maybe 2010 pop album. I don't love the song TikTok. I think TikTok does the album kind of a disservice, but there's other amazing songs on there, like Backstabber. Backstabber is probably my favorite song off the album. But that was Animal by Kesha. After that, we move into the Beach Boys' Pet Sounds. Definitely a more, I don't necessarily want to say experimental, but a total different vibe up to that point from what the Beach Boys, I almost said Beastie Boys, what the Beach Boys had done before that, which is like a lot of like, kind of like surf rock, surf music. This album kind of goes completely in the other direction. You have songs on here such as like Sloop John B and Only God Only Knows. An amazing album from them that I think definitely was a departure from what they were doing, what they were doing up to that point, but definitely a very, very good album. After that, we moved to Crazy Sexy Cool by TLC. This has got a lot of very good R&B songs. Like Waterfalls is probably their most iconic song. But I think I definitely like Creep a little bit more off the same album here. So that is Crazy Sexy Cool by TLC. After that, we move into The Fame Monster by Lady Gaga, this is a re-release version of The Fame with a bunch of extra tracks to it. I was listening to some of this actually earlier today. Like, it's got like Telephone, which features Beyonce. You have Poker Face, Bad Romance, Paparazzi. Just a lot of her very kind of early iconic tracks are off of this album. So that is the Fame Monster by Lady Gaga. After that, we move into some more heavy metal. We have Power Slave by Iron Maiden. It was either between this and Number of the Beast for me, but I think this has like just overall is a better album. You have 2 Minutes to Midnight on here. You have Aces High. You have one of their longer songs, or one of their longest. It's not their longest anymore because I think there's a song that's longer. But Rhyme of the Ancient Mariners off this album, and just this album artwork is like a mid '80s metal classic, which is Power Slave by Iron Maiden. After that, we move into The Sickness by Disturbed. This is the first album that I remember listening to by Disturbed, and it was like very hard, very heavy. You have the title track, like The Sickness, on there. You have, I think this is the same album where they did a cover of Shout by Tears for Fears. Disturbed is very well known for doing just amazing covers, and I would just like look up their cover of "The Sounds of Silence" by Simon and Garfunkel if you want to see an amazing cover. But "The Sickness" by Disturbed, probably my favorite album from them. I remember when I was really into playing Halo 2, I had a huge Disturbed playlist, and this album was in heavy rotation on that playlist. After that, let me see. Yeah, after that we move into. Sorry, I jumped ahead a little bit there. We moved to "Hot Fuss" by the Killers. You got this is their first album. It's got some amazing songs. Forget the name of the song, but it's got like I'm not like I got soul, but I'm not a soldier. That's probably my favorite song by the Killers. You have Mr. Brightside, which is probably one of their most well-known songs as well. So that's Hot Fuss by the Killers. After that, we move into the Wu-Tang Clan's debut album, Wu-Tang Clan, or Enter the Wu-Tang 36 Chambers. Just amazing songs off here like Cream, Method Man slash Torture, which I think is awesome. You have just Bring the Ruckus, just a very strong debut from the Wu Tang Clan with 36 Chambers. After that, we move into Teenage Dream by Katy Perry. Probably my favorite song or favorite album from them. I know it's got like Peacock is on here. Peacock's terrible. I don't know why I mentioned that one. I bet Firework is on here. TGIF, probably my favorite Katy Perry song because I remember when I used to go out and actually like go out on like a weekend to go drinking. TGIF was like my kind of warm up drinking song. I would go out and listen to that before I would go out to like the club with my friends and stuff like that, or the bars or whatever. But an amazing pop album. That's going to do it for this half of the video. We're going to load up the other half of the albums in the slideshow. We'll be right back. And next we featured Paranoid by Black Sabbath. Amazing. It's got Iron Man on there. It's got War Pigs. It's got a lot of other just amazing songs. Probably definitely my favorite Black Sabbath album. I own this one on vinyl. So that is Paranoid by Black Sabbath. The next album we featured was Axis Bold as Love by Jimi Hendrix. Just a kind of very awesome psychedelic kind of rock album. Definitely something you can just easily like chill out and jam to. Definitely a Jimi Hendrix classic. After that, we featured Tragic Kingdom by No Doubt. Still think it's my favorite No Doubt album overall. You have just like a lot of classic tracks on here, such as Just a Girl, Spider Webs. You have like Sunday Morning. I think like Came in the Breeze on Sunday Morning. An amazing album. Their follow-up album after this was also pretty good, but I think Tragic Kingdom is probably my favorite album from them. After that, we went into Abbey Road by the Beatles, a classic, and they kind of went out on a high note with this because they were kind of in the process of, like breaking up, and instead of just breaking up, they decided to put their kind of differences aside, at least temporarily, and release one of their finest albums. You have like Here Comes the Sun. Here Comes the Sun, probably one of my favorite songs on here. You have She's So Heavy, just a classic, and of course the classic, iconic album artwork of them walking across Abbey Road. So that was Abbey Road by the Beatles. After that, we moved into Definitely Maybe by Oasis. It was definitely between this one and What's the Story, Morning Glory. I love both albums, but I think Definitely Maybe has just a few more songs on it that I absolutely love. I think Champagne Supernova is probably my favorite song from them overall. But the tracks on, I think, like That and Don't Look Back in Anger are very good. I don't really Wonderwall definitely just got overplayed, which is off their other album. But I think definitely maybe just has more Oasis songs that I actually really, really like. So that was definitely maybe by Oasis. After that, we moved into Paul's Boutique by the Beastie Boys. I definitely think it's their most interesting album. But my top three Beastie Boys albums are probably License to Ill, Paul's Boutique, and Hello Nasty. This one definitely has like their most creative use of like samplings and some very just like classic iconic rhymes. Uh, I don't really know what my favorite album from them would be. It's definitely between those three. But Paul's Boutique definitely feels like a late '80s just hip hop like masterpiece. You have them just like making like silly rhymes, which are just amazing. So that is Paul's Boutique by the Beastie Boys. After that, we went into Pleasure Victim by Berlin. That was when I just happened to be looking through my vinyl collection and saw that. And it's got probably my favorite Berlin song on it, which is The Metro. The Metro is an amazing song. You have like Charade on there as well. So that was Pleasure Victim by Berlin. After that, we moved into I Say by Erasure. Kind of like a synth pop techno. Maybe like techno might not be the right term, but very like computer synthesizer focused. I remember my friend in high school told me about this band, and it was like, this is definitely my favorite Erasure album. You have songs in there like Run to the Sun and I Love Saturday, some classic kind of like, I would say mid '90s because it's 1994, but just love this album by Erasure. So it's I Say by Erasure. After that, we move into Good Kid, Mad City by Kendrick Lamar. Probably got my favorite song from him is Money Trees because it's like Money Trees, ya bish, ya bish. It's Hallelujah, 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 or Halle Berry. A very good, just amazing hip hop album. Probably my favorite Kendrick Lamar album overall. I think Damn is also pretty good. I haven't listened to his most recent one, but that is Good Kid, Mad City by Kendrick Lamar. After that, we move into Rage Against the Machine by Rage Against the Machine. I think probably my favorite album from there. Evil Empire is pretty good, but this one just has just such classics as Killing in the Name, Wake Up, and think songs like that, and just that classic, iconic album artwork, which is still like somewhat terrifying. But that is Rage Against the Machine's debut, I think, from 1992. After that, we move into A Night at the Opera by Queen. Queen's got a lot of picking a Queen album for this playlist was pretty difficult, but I ended up going with this album because it's got like some iconic classics like Bohemian Rhapsody and several other just solid Queen standbys. So that's A Night at the Opera by Queen. After that, we move into Renaissance by Beyonce. I think overall my favorite Beyonce album, and it's just got some solid tracks on there, such as I think like Cuff It, Alien Superstar. Picked up the vinyl recently, and it's been in heavy rotation somewhat recently for like the last like couple months now. But that is Renaissance by Beyonce. After that, we move into Let's Dance by David Bowie. You have classics like the title track of Let's Dance. You have China Girl. You have Modern Love. Just a very solid David Bowie album and solid '80s Bowie pop as well. After that, we moved into Back to Black by Amy Winehouse. Just a kind of very solid blues slash jazz album, such classics as, of course, Rehab, Love Is a Losing Game, title track Back to Black, and You Know I'm No Good. An amazing album. Like I said, like I have all of her albums on vinyl, and this one is, I think, easily like her best. And after that, final album in the series, we moved into DMX's debut of It's Dark and Hell is Hot. I think I said this in the video for this album. Just one of the best hip hop albums of all time, and one of the best debut albums, kind of across genres too. So like not just rap, hip hop, but just like any music, any genre. One of the best like songs on there, like the Rough Riders anthem, and X is Coming. Like I said, definitely some very solid tracks, and kind of like the album just goes very hard. So that is us breaking down just kind of the albums we listen to. We're going to switch over and we're going to break down the stats now and just talk about the different genres we focused on, the different decades. We got something like graphs we'll look at and stuff like that. And we'll be right back with that. All right, and we are back with just a couple of little graphs here. Top graph is going to be the genres that were kind of featured in this series, and the graph below that is the various decades that we covered. I didn't get very specific with the genres. I was a little more broad. So, like for example, like rock covered a lot of various forms of rock. So, like alternative rock and just regular rock. Stuff like that. So like, there wasn't a lot of granularity to kind of the genres. I think like maybe there was like soft rock was one, and I know metal was kind of like another kind of off. I think metal is a little bit different enough than rock, so I kind of categorize those on their own. And again, the chart below that is the various decades covered. But basically, we look at it. It's no surprise with rock being for me, being the kind of the heavy kind of favorite as far as the genres go. I think I even mentioned rock probably would be the most focused or featured genre in the kind of like opening of the series. But with rock, we have 16 rock albums, and then we move into soft rock, where we featured 2 soft rock albums. Into pop, we have 9 pop albums. Only 1 punk album, I think that was The Offspring. I think it was close enough to be punk than putting it in with rock. So 1 punk album. After that, we moved to rap with 6 albums. After that, we have jazz with 4 albums. Country had 3. We had 4 dance albums. And then we had 4 metal albums. After that, we have 2 R&B albums and just 1 soul album with, I believe, I think that was the Stevie Wonder album was under soul. Into the decades, we have decades ranging from the 1960s all the way up to the 2020s. The 60s, we had 4 albums from the 60s featured. Into the 70s, we had 6. The 80s has 8 albums from that decade. The 90s, definitely the clear favorite, and that's not a surprise to me, with 18 albums from the 90s. The 2000s has 9 albums. Into the 2010s with 5. And 2020s, we had just 2 albums. I believe that was probably Red, Taylor's version, and Renaissance by Beyonce. So definitely clear kind of favorite with with rock in the 90s, and I don't really think that's much of a surprise. But I am going to use this moment to kind of mention the series that I'm going to be working on next year. It'll be very similar to this, but it will be all new albums. So basically, it'll be 52 new albums, or at least new albums to me. So it's going to be albums that I've either have never heard of, never played at all, or maybe an album where I've only maybe heard 1 or 2 tracks off of it. So I'm definitely going to try to expand my kind of musical horizons in 2024. So we'll be doing that with a whole new series. Probably still be putting those episodes up on Tuesdays. So basically listening to essentially a new album every week, kind of doing a discussion about it, like a small breakdown of the album, let you know what I think of the album, stuff like that. But want to do it with albums that I have not heard of at all, maybe even from artists I've never listened to, or artists that I do know but I haven't heard the album, or if I've heard the album, I've only heard maybe 1 or 2 tracks off of it. So 2024 will be doing that series, and it'll just be 52 new albums, or at least new albums to me at least. But that's going to do it for this video. I want to thank you again for watching, and thank you for watching this series over the last year. I hope everybody has a very kind of safe and happy New Year. Hope your 2024 is awesome, and remember to like, comment, share, and subscribe. And we'll see you again. See you again next year, I guess. Haha. But that's gonna do it for now. So thanks again for watching. Take care. Have a good one. See ya.